In the United States, the past 2 days have delivered some of the most disruptive weather of the summer. Torrential thunderstorms swept through the New York City area, dropping an intense volume of rainfall in a very short window and paralyzing major urban centers with sudden flash floods. And this extreme precipitation stretches far beyond American borders. In China's Liaoning province, rapidly rising water forced communities into sudden crisis, requiring emergency crews to carry out heavy-duty rooftop rescues to pull residents from the deluge. We're watching a deeply unsettled summer take hold across the Northern Hemisphere. The atmosphere is holding massive amounts of moisture and releasing it in devastatingly short, violent bursts over highly populated areas. To keep track of these rapidly shifting weather patterns as they evolve, make sure to hit subscribe. Now let's look at the full global map to see exactly what's driving this chaos. These localized disasters, from flooded New York avenues to submerged Chinese towns, are connected symptoms of a broader, highly volatile atmospheric shift that is currently disrupting millions of lives. The sheer volume of water in the New York area completely overwhelmed local infrastructure. Across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, streets rapidly turned into rivers. Vehicles were stranded along the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, and the pressure was so intense at spots that water physically burst upward out of the roadways. That storm system is part of a massive outbreak currently affecting more than 100 million people across the Northeast. Alongside the torrential rain, residents are facing down winds exceeding 70 miles per hour and the persistent threat of isolated tornadoes. The singular benefit of this violent weather is that it finally cleared the air. Prior to the heavy rain, the eastern half of the country had spent days choking under hazy orange skies caused by drifting smoke from Canadian wildfires. Further south, the ground remains dangerously saturated. Texas is still recovering from a deadly round of weekend flash flooding, where emergency crews are actively pulling debris from waterways and conducting multiple water rescues. Looking at this forecast map, the atmosphere remains highly energized. We're tracking a severe storm path stretching from the Midwest into the Northeast. This brings overlapping risks of severe thunderstorms, large hail, and excessive heat baking the exact same regions. U.S. residents are now navigating a stretch where these hazards overlap and persist, moving away from a pattern of single short-lived events and into a more prolonged, volatile state. Shifting over to Asia, we're seeing monsoon-related weather push into overdrive. Relentless rainfall in parts of China's Liaoning province has swept away vehicles and essentially replaced city streets with waterways. In India, attention is fixed on Jammu and Kashmir. A highly active monsoon has collided with a passing western disturbance, prompting authorities to issue critical alerts for extremely heavy rain. That specific atmospheric combination is incredibly dangerous in this geography. The steep, mountainous terrain turns heavy, sudden rainfall into immediate high-risk zones for severe flash flooding and landslides. Meanwhile, Thailand's coast is being battered by a stronger-than-usual southwest monsoon. High winds and heavy rain are driving rough, dangerous surf into the shoreline, forcing small boats to stay locked in port. Yet, the region's overall data reveals a strange paradox. Despite these highly destructive, extreme micro-disasters forcing evacuations and rescues, overall monsoon rainfall actually trends slightly below average for the year. Africa currently presents the starkest weather divide on the map. Along the West African coast, deep moisture streaming off the Atlantic is driving above-average rainfall, exposing nations from Guinea to southern Nigeria to a severe, ongoing risk of flooding. Travel further south and east, and the water completely disappears. Central and southern Africa, particularly Angola, are crippled by a deepening drought, with massive rainfall deficits building month after month, leaving the earth deeply parched. Across East Africa and into the Middle East, the defining feature is persistent abnormal heat. Temperatures routinely top 35 degrees Celsius. In places like Dubai, extreme coastal humidity traps that heat, making the air feel considerably more punishing than the thermometer even suggests. Europe is also struggling to shake its warmth. While France has thankfully cooled off from the 40-degree extremes recorded during June's historic heatwave, Paris is still running well into the 30s, with pockets of the country remaining under amber and yellow heat alerts. Across the Channel, the United Kingdom is experiencing highly variable conditions. The historic July heat that broke national records has temporarily eased, but the landscape remains visibly dried out, and forecasters are still tracking further spells of warmth and thundery showers. The initial shock of early summer extremes might have softened slightly, but from Paris to Dubai, these regions remain trapped in a dangerously warm, highly volatile atmospheric pattern. To find a break in the chaos, we have to cross the equator. The southern hemisphere remains firmly and quietly in the grip of seasonal winter, particularly in South America. Conditions here are remarkably typical. Santiago enjoys crisp, clear afternoons, while Buenos Aires is running cool, with highs in the low teens Celsius. Aside from the occasional rain front moving up the Brazilian coast, there are zero severe weather headlines dominating the continent. Australia shares this seasonal stability. Temperatures are holding steady and cool, with Sydney running a mild 16 to 19 degrees Celsius and Melbourne tracking just slightly cooler. It is unremarkable in the best possible sense. The only long-range concern for Australia is a dry trend. Forecasts point to below-average rainfall through September, with temperatures expected to run slightly above average as the country heads into spring. This leaves the global map split by the equator. While the southern hemisphere stays locked in seasonal stability, the north faces the immediate physical impacts of flash floods, heat, and severe storm systems. This unsettled, highly energized atmospheric pattern across the north is locked in for the foreseeable future. We'll continue tracking these systems closely because as the atmosphere shifts, staying informed is the only way to stay prepared.